It's over. What tried to break you couldn't stand against what heaven planted inside you. I see you. I know exactly what you've been through. And what was weaponized against you has been removed. Not by accident, not by human hustle, but because it lost its legal right to stay. Stay with me until the very end, because before this message is over, you're going to understand why you were the chosen target and what that says about who you've been since long before the first attack ever hit. You woke up at 3 in the morning and didn't know why. It wasn't a nightmare you could describe. It was just your body on high alert, a racing heart in the dark with no name for the danger. You laid there staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what was wrong, but you couldn't find anything concrete. Just the weight. And when morning came, you got up. You got dressed, you went out, you answered the emails, and you smiled in all the right places. Nobody saw it. You were a professional at carrying that burden where no one could see it. You smiled in public and bled at home, maintaining a performance of normalcy while something inside you was trying to snap. At night, you did the math. The bills that didn't add up the way they should, the seasons that took way too long to end, the breakthroughs that felt like a sure thing but never showed up. You counted your losses in the dark while trying not to lose your soul at the same time. That specific tension, keeping the faith when the bank account and the calendar aren't confirming it, is one of the heaviest loads a human can carry. And at some point, you sent that "I'm doing okay" text with a hand that was literally shaking. It wasn't a lie. It was protection. Because what you were carrying was too big to fit into a casual conversation, and you've already learned that not everyone has the strength to hold the weight of what's real. So you carried it alone. Hitting that like button right now is your public amen. Heaven records what you confess out loud. If this message found you, press it now. You're still standing. That's not a small thing. That's not the default. Most people, under that specific kind of pressure, without an audience, without applause, and with no visible end in sight, they fold. You seek. You dedicate yourself. You do everything right, and yet abundance never comes. And the worst part, you start wondering if you're doing something wrong, if you're being heard up above, if it's meant for you at all. It's not a lack of faith or worthiness. It's a spiritual blockage that ordinary prayer alone cannot break. The Miracle Journal unblocks this in 21 days with a spiritual protocol that works exactly where your prayer doesn't reach. Along with the journal, you'll also receive as a gift the prayer guide and the Psalms manual with the most powerful sacred practices and texts to deepen your transformation. To claim your version of the journal, tap the link in the comments right below this video. And with no visible end in sight, they fold. You didn't. And that wasn't luck. It was a sign. Before I go any further, God wants to tell you something directly. I saw it. I saw every night you wanted to quit but didn't. I saw the shaking hand that texted, "I'm fine," because there was no one to give the truth to. I saw you doing the inventory in the dark. You didn't carry it alone because you were abandoned. You carried it alone because what was in you was bigger than what was around you. I put you here because this word is for you. Today, you're going to receive 3 specific things. First, the confirmation that the pressure you felt wasn't random bad luck. It was evidence that you carry something the enemy knew he would lose to heaven. Second, the protocol to name what's been removed and how to walk in the space that obstacle used to occupy. Because empty space after a divine eviction isn't an absence, it's an inheritance. Third, by the end of this, you'll be able to say out loud, with authority, not just wishful thinking, that what tried to destroy you was actually the clearest proof of who you really are. But to receive what's been prepared for you here, I need your undivided attention. Close the other tabs. Put away the distractions. This doesn't work with a divided mind. The signs showed up before you understood what they meant, and you gave them other names because the labels the world offers for these experiences are always smaller than the reality. The first sign was a bone-deep exhaustion with no medical explanation. You slept for 8 hours, you rested, and you still woke up drained. The doctor didn't find anything. Blood work was normal, but the fatigue stayed. You called it stress or just a rough patch or maybe a vitamin deficiency. What that actually was your spirit absorbing spiritual pressure that your mind hadn't named yet. That tiredness wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a sign that you were on the front lines of something much bigger than your visible life suggested. The second sign was the feeling of being watched or monitored at the exact moments you were making progress. When you made a big decision, when you prayed with real intensity, when something was about to shift, this strange discomfort would crawl over you. A surveillance you couldn't pinpoint. You called it paranoia or social anxiety or just being too sensitive. What that actually was the presence of something that didn't want you to move. You weren't being paranoid. You were sensing spiritual resistance in real time. The third sign was the heavy, disturbing dreams during your seasons of spiritual growth. It wasn't a coincidence of dates. It was a pattern. The deeper you went into prayer, into the Word, into real intimacy with the Father, the darker the dreams got. You blamed what you ate, or accumulated stress, or your brain just processing the day. What that actually was interference trying to jam your frequency. The attack happened in the space of your greatest openness because that was the space that mattered most to shut down. The fourth sign was the relationships that evaporated without a clear explanation over the last few months. People who just walked away, connections that went cold, bonds that snapped without a big fight or an obvious betrayal. They just ended. You tried to analyze why. You replayed the conversations. You asked yourself what you did wrong. What that actually was a divine eviction of weights you wouldn't have been able to let go of on your own. Heaven doesn't ask for permission to detach what's blocking your momentum. What left? Left because its assignment was done, or because it should never have stayed that long in the first place. The next sign is the hardest one to hear. It's the one the enemy has spent the most time trying to make you ignore. The fifth sign is the gut feeling that something is over. Even without a ceremony or an announcement, there was no formal declaration, no date on the calendar, no outside confirmation, but you felt it. A different kind of stillness, a sense of closure that arrived before your brain had the arguments to back it up. You called it an impression, or wishful thinking, or hope disguised as certainty. The enemy worked overtime to make sure you didn't take that feeling seriously. Because when the spirit recognizes the end of a cycle before the mind understands why, it is the most accurate sign there is that the removal is real. The spirit doesn't announce what hasn't already been done. If any of these signs resonated with you, type free in the comments right now. Close your eyes for a second. Take a deep breath. What I'm about to tell you won't land if your focus is split. There's a pattern in the story of Joseph that most people read as just a lesson in patience. It's more than that. It's a blueprint of how a proportional attack works. Joseph wasn't attacked because he was weak. He was sold, enslaved, and imprisoned specifically because what was in him was a direct threat to what the enemy wanted to control. Every stage of the attack looked like a final defeat. The pit looked like the end. Slavery looked like the end. Prison looked like the end. And at every point, his attackers celebrated as if the destruction was complete. But what they cheered as a victory was actually the exact GPS route to the position heaven had prepared for him before the first attack ever happened. What tried to destroy Joseph was the vehicle that got him where he needed to go. The intensity of the attack was the enemy's involuntary recognition of who Joseph was. There's also an image in nature that mirrors what you've been through. A tree growing under a massive rock. You've seen it. The root hits the stone in the middle of its path. It can't go around it, and it can't just move it. What the tree does isn't wait for the rock to leave. It grows. And by growing over months and years, it splits the rock from the inside out. The rock wasn't removed by an outside force. The growth of the tree shattered the rock from within. The obstacle didn't stop the growth. It was broken by it. You are that tree. And what heaven put inside you before the attack started was bigger than anything the attack brought with it. The obstacle was cracked by what was in you before you even knew you'd need to use it. Tell me in the comments which one you identify with more, Joseph or the tree that split the rock. Let me stop for a full minute. You resisted something that didn't have a clear name. The pressure that came against you wasn't identifiable by normal standards. It didn't have an obvious face or a return address. It was heavy, constant, and it tried to make you doubt your own sanity. And you kept going even when you didn't know why. What was removed didn't leave because of human effort. You weren't strategic enough, or persistent enough, or spiritual enough to force it out. The removal was done by a hand that isn't yours, on a timeline that wasn't yours, using a method you wouldn't have chosen. That doesn't take away from what you did. What you did was remain available while heaven worked. Every sign I listed was recorded by heaven in real time. Not one 3 a.m. wake-up call went unnoticed. No inventory in the dark was done alone. No "I'm fine" text sent with a shaking hand went unseen by the Father. And the end of the cycle doesn't need a ceremony to be real. The Spirit has already confirmed it internally. You already know. Your mind might still be begging for external proof, but your spirit has already nodded. What you're about to hear isn't a human title. It's what I call you when I talk to heaven about you. It's not what the people around you call you. It's not the label the attack tried to pin on you. It's who you were before the first hit, and who you still are after the last one. You are a chosen target. Nobody hunts what's irrelevant. The enemy doesn't waste resources on people who aren't a threat. The intensity of what was thrown at you was proportional to what was sealed in you by heaven. I saw the crosshairs. I saw the calculation behind the attack. I saw that the choice of who to go after wasn't random. You were the target because what was in you was the very thing that needed to be neutralized. And it wasn't. What this identity gives you permission to do is this. You can stop asking yourself why it was so hard. The answer is that the intensity of the attack was the enemy's involuntary admission of your greatness. You are a survivor with authority. There are people who survive. And then there are people who survive and walk away with authority over what they just walked through. The difference isn't the amount of suffering. It's what was sealed in you at every point where you refused to quit. I saw every time you didn't fold. I saw the choices to stay standing on nights when giving up would have been easier, in conversations where agreeing would have been more comfortable, in moments where retreating would have looked like wisdom. Every time you stayed on your feet, it was recorded as a spiritual declaration. Not as luck, not as stubbornness, as faithfulness. What this identity allows is this. You can stop downplaying what you went through. You can speak about it as a testimony of authority. Not as a victim, not as a complaint, but as proof of what was sealed in you before the attack ever began. You are a keeper of the clearing. What was removed left a space. And the space a divine removal leaves behind isn't a neutral vacuum. It's space prepared to receive what heaven always wanted to put there, but couldn't fit while the obstacle was in the way. I saw the eviction. I saw the clearing, and I already know what's going to fill it. You weren't just prepared to survive the hit. You were prepared to receive what the hit was trying to block. What this identity authorizes is this. You can stop waiting for the next attack as if that's your default life. You can walk in this clearing as an heir, not as someone who got lucky and is just waiting for the next blow to land. Write the name of the identity that hit you hardest in the comments. And if you aren't subscribed to this channel yet, do it now. Because what's delivered here was prepared specifically for you. Now here is the protocol. And this is free because what was given here wasn't for sale. This is called the Protocol of Confirmed Removal. 3 steps. Simple to say, deep to do. Step 1. Name what was removed out loud. No euphemisms, no vague language. If it was a relationship, say the name. If it was a cycle of poverty, name the specific pattern. If it was a faceless pressure, Give it the most specific name you can. Naming it is the first act of authority over what has ended. What doesn't have a name still has power. What has a name has been captured. Step 2. 60 seconds of silence, acknowledging that the removal was done by a hand that isn't yours. It wasn't your hustle, your strategy, or your persistence that did this. Those were good and they were necessary, but the eviction itself was a move of heaven. 60 seconds of refusing to take credit for what belongs to the Father. This is the hardest act for someone who learned to survive by only counting on themselves. Step 3. An oral declaration of who you are in the space that obstacle used to take up. That ground is yours now. Not in the future. Now. Name the identity that gets to live where that problem used to be. Say it out loud. A decree made with your voice carries a different weight than a thought kept in your head. The sign of confirmation isn't euphoria. It's not immediate crying. It's not an instant feeling of lightness. The sign is stillness. The stillness of someone who recognizes that the work is already done. If you are receiving this protocol, type "received" in the comments. In the next 72 hours, 3 things will be thrown at you. Not as a possibility, as a certainty. The first is the file audit. It comes disguised as healthy reflection. It will bring back memories of the closed cycle with the feeling that they still have power over your present. A conversation you'll suddenly remember. A scene that will play back with details you thought you'd forgotten. A feeling that will try to make you believe it didn't really end, that this is just a halftime break before it starts again. When that hits, call it by its name. That's not reflection. That's a closed case being reopened without a warrant. The second is the immediate fire drill. It comes disguised as realism. Right after a removal, a new problem will scream for the attention the old obstacle used to take. A financial surprise. Unexpected news. A conflict that seems to come out of nowhere. The goal isn't to solve the new problem. The goal is to keep you from inhabiting your new clearing with faith. Call it by its name. The space cleared by God isn't meant to be immediately filled with the next crisis. The third is the disqualification of the win. It comes disguised as humility. It's the voice that says you shouldn't celebrate because there's still so much to do, that celebrating is spiritual immaturity, and that acknowledging the victory is arrogant. Call it by its name. True humility isn't denying what heaven did. It's acknowledging that heaven is the one who did it. And then there's the enemy within. The voice that says, wait and see if it's actually over. The doubt that turns a confirmed ending into a permanent state of suspense. It turns the peace of closure into the anxiety of waiting for a confirmation that isn't coming, because the closure doesn't need any more proof. You already have it. The Spirit has already signed off. What that voice wants is for you to live in a provisional state, never declaring what's been done, never living in the space as an heir, always waiting for just one more sign. Type "protected" in the comments. The decree has been sealed. Now I want to ask you one thing. Place your right hand over your heart. Feel your pulse. Feet firm on the ground. This isn't the posture of someone still resisting. This is the posture of someone receiving. I want you to hand over 3 things right now. Hand over the fear that what ended will come back in another mask. That fear has been a loyal companion. It tried to protect you, and it made sense while you were in the fight. But the cycle is closed. Carrying that fear into your new clearing is like wearing a suit of armor inside your own house. Let it go. Hand over the high alert survivor identity. You were a survivor, and it was noble. But being in permanent high alert is a posture for when the attack is active. The attack is over. Staying on edge now is wasting energy that belongs to your future. Hand over the need for someone else to validate that it was real and that it's actually over. You aren't going to get that external certificate. Not because the victory wasn't real, but because heaven doesn't outsource your confirmation to human approval. The validation has already been given. It was given internally, by the Spirit, by the stillness, and by the sign you recognized before you could even explain it. Now I want to speak to you directly. I saw your hand shaking when you sent that "I'm fine" text. You didn't send that because you were okay. You sent it because you'd learned that not everyone has the strength to handle the truth. You protected the people around you from a weight that was yours. That wasn't weakness. That was you operating with more maturity than most people could handle in that moment. I saw it. And what you carried alone in those seconds, with no human witness. I was the witness. I saw the inventory in the dark, the nights you opened the bank app, the calendar, the expectations that didn't arrive, and tried to make the math work in an equation that faith held together, but the numbers hadn't confirmed yet. I saw when you put your phone down and chose to believe anyway. That wasn't naivety. That was the most expensive choice a human can make. Keeping the faith without the confirmation present. I recorded every single time. What was removed didn't leave a hole. It left a clearing. And what's going to fill that clearing isn't just another version of what was there before. It's what was waiting on the other side of the obstacle. The thing that couldn't fit as long as that mountain was in the way. I prepared you to receive, not just to survive. And the difference between those two positions is everything. You didn't get here by luck. You got here because what I put in you before the first attack was bigger than anything that was ever thrown at you. The intensity of what you walked through was the measurement of what is sealed in you. And what is sealed in you by heaven is not up for review. Say it out loud right now. What tried to destroy me has been removed. I am who heaven says I am. Say it one more time. What tried to destroy me has been removed. I am who heaven says I am. It is done. What was delivered here has been delivered. Type "it is done" in the comments if this message truly reached you. And think of one person right now, just one, who is in the middle of a brutal cycle and doesn't know it's about to end. Send this video to them. Not to a group chat. To them. Include a voice note or a text that says, "This is for you." What heaven does for someone when you send it with intention is different than when a video just floats around. If you want to go deeper than what was given here, the link is in the first comment, waiting for you just like it waited for this moment. You aren't the same person you were when this message started. What was removed is gone. The clearing is yours. Walk like the air you are. It is done. You seek. You dedicate yourself. You do everything right, and yet abundance never comes. And the worst part? You start wondering if you're doing something wrong, if you're being heard up above, if it's meant for you at all. It's not a lack of faith or worthiness. It's a spiritual blockage that ordinary prayer alone cannot break. The Miracle Journal unblocks this in 21 days with a spiritual protocol that works exactly where your prayer doesn't reach. Along with the journal, you'll also receive as a gift the prayer guide and the Psalms manual, with the most powerful sacred practices and texts to deepen your transformation. To claim your version of the journal, tap the link in the comments right below this video.